guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing with you some different book recommendations that I myself find very interesting, but I can guarantee not a lot of other people will. But it's something that I want to share, and maybe if you are in the mood to learn or read something educational, you might pick up any of these books and think, oh, well, this actually sounded good. I might have a flick through. Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping just to share this, and if you guys find it interesting, then cool. If not, then I'm sure you'll find something else to watch. So anyway, I have about 5 books here that are all historical in some way. So archaeology, historical events, and even one about books. So I'm really excited to share these with you, and let's get into it. So the first one I have here is actually the first one I ever got, and I don't know, there was just something about it that sounded really interesting and really exciting, and I was just looking forward to reading it. And that is Unearthing the Past, The Great Discoveries of Archaeology from Around the World by Douglas Palmer, Paul Barn, and Joyce Tildesley. I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce that last name, but I gave it a try. So basically, if you know me well enough, you know that I absolutely love archaeology, I absolutely love history, hence why majority of these books are going to be history related. And archaeology is one of my most favorite things, I suppose, to learn about, because I like learning about history, and I like learning about the society, like the old societies, the previous societies who were here before us, different civilizations, and just unearthing all these different secrets and different things that we get to learn more about. And I sound like a nerd, but it's very exciting, and that's part of being a history buff, I suppose, that you are seen as probably a boring little nerd. But hey, this is actually really interesting, and one of the main reasons that I wanted to pick this one up is because there's actually a section in here about Pompeii and the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which I was never really, that into like natural disasters, except for tornadoes, I suppose, which I still am. So I'm still interested in all this sort of stuff anyway. But yeah, I've never really been interested in natural disasters, so it wasn't the whole volcano incident that got me. It was the aftermath and the bodies, the ash and everything that they were able to collect, like the pockets of air that they had with the people that were in it previously. So it sort of shaped their bodies, the ash, when it covered everybody, it sort of shaped their bodies. And then when, like, many years down the track, when we discovered them and we filled the air pockets up, and it came out as these molds of people and what they look like and what they look like in their last moments. And I thought that was probably the most interesting and probably morbid thing that I could want to read about. But it's that reason why I picked this one up. So this book actually has different categories and different parts of history that it focuses on, and different archaeological aspects that they want to talk about in this book. So it starts with, it goes from prehistoric, and then tombs and burial sites, then cities and dwelling places, art, intellect and religion, war and human conflict, migration and colonization, and science and archaeology. So it basically goes from discovering different prehistoric bodies and things that they used to use, and then it goes to different tombs and burial sites, and then the different cities is actually probably one of the most interesting things. So it actually has Machu Picchu in there, so everything about Peru there, and then Pompeii as well, which I mentioned. I'll actually get to the Pompeii section because that's probably my most interesting one. I think I actually marked that page. Don't hate on me because I dog-ear my pages. Sometimes I just don't have a bookmark. Anyway, so this is the thing that actually is really interesting. Yeah, as I previously mentioned, this is the thing that is super interesting for me, for some stupid reason, and that's the molds of the people, of what they were like in their last moments. So they were huddled together to keep safe, I guess. But basically this section of Pompeii is called Lost Worlds Rediscovered, and it just starts about the volcano, and also the location of Pompeii, and when it was discovered. But it's really cool because it goes through all the warning signs and what they must have went through before the volcano, and just even like how they used to live, how they used to have all these different brothels and things like that. And I don't know, I just think it's really, really interesting, and that probably sounds completely boring, and I probably bored you all to death with my knowledge of Pompeii there. But hey, I like it, so I guess that's the most important thing here. The other interesting thing in this that I guess I just want to share with you as well is the Great Stone Circles. So not just Stonehenge, but a couple of other different ones near Stonehenge or that are like Stonehenge. And it's just really cool that there's all these different circles around the globe that are very similar to each other, and we still don't know what they mean or what they were for. Like, we can have basic ideas of what they are and what they could be for, but we don't know for sure. But yeah, I think this section is really cool because we still have absolutely no idea what they're for, and just the fact that it's like a tourist destination, because as soon as you go over to England, that's all you want to go see. And that's all I really want to go see half the time, is want to go see Stonehenge, because it's just fascinating. And I think that's the reason I really like this one so much, is because it focuses on a lot of the cities, and I like learning about the old cities and how people used to live and what they used to use, like what tools they used to use. And yeah, so I think that's probably the main thing about this, just the fact that they've uncovered all these different things from cities and stuff. And I'll stop ranting about this one and actually move on, but as you can tell, this is my favorite one, so let's move on. The next one I have here is probably an obvious choice after this book, because it's Pompeii, the Last Day, and this literally focuses on Pompeii and the last day before, you know, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and everything, and it just goes through like what their lives are like, what they used to do, and what happened afterwards, and all the different things they used to use. And I think it's really fascinating because I like learning about Pompeii, and I like learning about what they had and what they used and what life would have been like back then in the ye old Roman times. So this one is by Paul Wilkinson, and it's actually by BBC Books. So BBC, obviously you can just tell that it's a great book because it's BBC. They usually have great shows and great books that, you know, if you're looking for something historical, definitely go for BBC. But I think it's really cool and fascinating to read about what it must have been like that particular day when everything just collapsed and ended, and it was sort of the end of this amazing civilization, I suppose. Because it would have taken them a hell of a lot of time to rebuild and regroup after this massive volcano that basically destroyed everything. So yes, if you are interested in Pompeii or anything to do with that, then you can definitely read something like this, because it has all the information that you need to know about Pompeii and the eruption. The next one that I have here is The Story of Archaeology by Justin Pollard. This is an illustrated edition of 50 Great Discoveries. Of course, because you can never get enough of archaeology, can you? Well, I know I can't. Like I said, it's so incredibly boring, this video, I swear. But hey, archaeology at its finest, guys. So as you can tell, this book is going to have all different things about the greatest discoveries in history, such as the search for the missing link, the navel of the world, the mystery of Easter Island. Another very fascinating thing about stones that we still have no idea how they got there and what they were even there for. And of course, if you couldn't tell by the front cover, the Terracotta Army, Guardians of Eternity, which I actually would really love to go and see these guys one day. It's definitely a goal of mine to go and see the Terracotta Army. But I think it's just amazing, like all the stuff that people have found throughout the years, and just how we still have barely discovered what is out there. Like, half the stuff we've discovered, we still don't know all about it, and we still haven't discovered half the stuff out there that needs to be discovered. But I think this is really cool. It's very interesting, especially if you're interested in archaeology, hence why I grabbed this one. But it's just got some really cool stuff in there to read about and things that people have found, and just, yeah, it's definitely another great one. And the next one I have is Mysteries in History, A Journey Through the Great Unanswered Questions of Our Time. So the main reason I picked up this one is because it actually focuses on Machu Picchu, another place I really want to go to. And this is basically just a history of Machu Picchu and all the sacred things and spiritual things that are associated with it. Definitely a very intriguing read. I would suggest having a look at this one because it's very educational, which I suppose all of these books are basically educational anyway. And of course, more about Easter Island. And dinosaurs, which is, I suppose, a big thing with a lot of people these days, to read about dinosaurs and it's also very exciting. And I absolutely love the illustrations. I mean, check out that. How freaking cool is that? I love the illustrations in some of these books. They're great. And even like stuff about evolution. I think this one's really fascinating because it talks about everything basically that you could think of, like pyramids as well. It's just really cool and fascinating, and I suppose I've said that about every other book, but they're all very interesting and fascinating, and I just love that. And a lot of the stuff that these books go on about are very, very different. They say it in a very different way to each other, so you're not reading the same thing over and over again. It's even got, you know, the death of Tutankhamun down the bottom that it talks about. And yeah, there's some really, really cool stuff in here, like Atlantis. I like learning about mysteries and things that we still don't know if they're real or if they're not, what brought upon the idea of these things, what their purpose was. It's just really cool to read about that sort of stuff. Like Atlantis, for example, like, do we know if that's real? Did it ever exist? Same with like the Trojan horse and things like that. So yeah, I think that's probably the main reason I picked this one up, because I do like learning about all these mysterious things that occurred throughout history or throughout different legends. Very exciting stuff. And now for the last and final book to get you through this boredom of looking at history books like you're in school again. And this is one for the bookworms, and that is Books That Changed History by James Naughty, from The Art of War to Anne Frank's Diary. Now this I actually got for Christmas last year, and holy crap, it is so cool. It has all these different things about some very well-known books, you know, from different parts in history. So from like the early stages way before paper to now, basically. And like, it's just really interesting, and it actually goes by the different eras. So it starts, I think it starts I guess where books began, I think is where it started, yeah. And then it goes to the modern books, so it goes from the old books to the modern books, and, you know, writing on paper and parchment and things like that. And then it starts at 3000 BCE to 999 CE, and it just goes through, you know, the Art of War, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and some of the books that I haven't actually heard of before and can't really pronounce. It's also got ancient Egyptian books of the dead, so very, very, very old books, but very interesting. And look, even hieroglyphics in here, so cool. And then it goes to where is it, 1000 to 1449, and that's got, you know, gospels, different tales, different things from the Middle Ages era. And then we've got 1450 to 1649, which, as you can see, is a hell of a lot more than what it was previously, because that's when writing became this huge thing, like even bigger than it was before. And obviously in this one we've got Shakespeare and Psalms and Don Quixote, I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not 100% sure. And I think that's really cool. So it goes through all those different things from the Renaissance era, and then it goes to 1650 to 1899, and that's when we have like fables and different religious things, and of course Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is a very well-known one for most people today. And that just talks about him and his writing, basically, how he came up with it. And then we have 1900 onwards, so that focuses on like Beatrix Potter, Brothers Grimm, Wonderful Wizard of Oz, things like that. And obviously Anne Frank, as previously mentioned on the title. But I just think it's really cool to learn about books and where they came from. And the history of books is something that, if you're a book lover, it's really something that you should learn about, or like try and give a go, because then you can know that these fabulous works that we all talk about and we all read about every single day of our lives, this is where they all came from and this is how they all started. So I think this is one that book lovers out there should have, or at least to try and have a look at, because it's fascinating to know where the books came from. Well, they're my 5 educational somewhat books. I hope you found that at least a little bit interesting. I know I did, talking about it, and I could go on about these books for days, but I will try not to. But let me know what you thought of these, and if you've actually got any of these, or if you've read them or seen them or something like that. And yeah, so thanks for watching again, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!